There comes a moment in life when you realize not every battle deserves your voice. Not every insult deserves a comeback. Not every accusation deserves a defense. And not every loud person deserves access to your peace. Because the truth is, most people are not trying to understand you. They're trying to provoke you, control you, expose your insecurity, pull you out of your center, and drag you into their chaos. And if you don't know how to respond, they win twice. First, they get your attention. Then they get your energy. But the strongest people in the room, the most dangerous ones, they don't always raise their voice. They don't rush to explain themselves. They don't perform confidence. They master something far more powerful: composure. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you always have the option of having no opinion. Epictetus taught that what disturbs us is not what happens, but how we interpret it. And Seneca warned that anger, once unleashed, becomes a weapon used against the one holding it. So this video is not about winning arguments. It's about something bigger. It's about keeping your dignity when people test you. It's about speaking with precision. It's about responding in a way that ends the game without costing you your self-respect. Because once you learn these 12 smart responses, people start realizing something uncomfortable. You are no longer easy to shake. And that changes everything. So if you've ever been talked down to, mocked, dismissed, manipulated, or baited into reactions you later regretted, stay with me. Because response number 12 is the one most people never learn. And once you do, you'll stop fearing confrontation forever. Let's begin. 1. You're entitled to your opinion. This is one of the commonest ways to end a useless exchange. Notice what it does. It doesn't attack. It doesn't defend. It doesn't beg to be understood. It simply hands the other person their opinion and refuses to carry it for them. That's power. Because many people insult you for one reason. They want you to react as if their judgment is your reality. They say you'll never make it. You're too sensitive. You've changed. You think you're better than everyone now. And the old version of you would rush in. To explain. To defend. To correct the story. But the Stoic knows something most people don't. Just because someone says something doesn't make it yours to solve. You're entitled to your opinion. That sentence says, I heard you. I'm not threatened. And I'm not volunteering for a debate. It's especially powerful with people who thrive on emotional reactions. Because what they're expecting is resistance. Instead, you give them a wall made of calm. And calm is incredibly frustrating to someone who came looking for control. Imagine someone smirks and says, honestly, I think you're overrated. And instead of taking the bait, you just say, you're entitled to your opinion. No sarcasm. No edge. Just stillness. Now the spotlight moves. Because without your emotional energy, their comment collapses under its own weight. That's the first lesson of Stoicism. Not every opinion deserves a trial. Sometimes the most intelligent response is refusing to treat noise like authority. 2. Maybe. This one is lethal in the most peaceful way. Because maybe does something extraordinary. It removes ego from the room. Most arguments escalate because both people are desperately protecting an identity. I'm right. You're wronged. You don't know me. That's not true. And suddenly, the conversation is no longer about facts. It's about pride. But when someone throws something at you, and you calmly say, maybe, you break the rhythm. You interrupt the script. They expected resistance. They got detachment. They say, You're selfish. You say, maybe. They say, you're not as smart as you think. You say, maybe. Now, why is that so powerful? Because insecure people feed on certainty. They need you to defend yourself so they can keep pressing. They need you emotionally hooked. But maybe gives them nothing to wrestle with. And it also shows a rare kind of confidence. The confidence to not collapse just because someone said something uncomfortable. Maybe there's truth in it. Maybe there is. Either way, you don't need to panic. That's Stoic strength. Marcus Aurelius constantly examined himself, not because he hated himself, but because he was not afraid of the truth. A weak person denies everything. A wise person can hear criticism without losing shape. Maybe does not mean surrender. It means, I'm secure enough to not fight every accusation like my life depends on it. And sometimes, that single word makes the other person feel strangely exposed. Because now they have to sit with what they said, without your emotional reaction to justify it. Sometimes the strongest posture is not, I'll prove you wrong. It's, maybe and I'm still standing. 3. Explain what you mean. Now this one is surgical. Because many insults sound powerful only when they remain vague. People say things like, you're fake. You always do this. Everyone knows how you are. You're the problem. Those phrases are designed to create emotional impact, not clarity. And when you react immediately, you step right into the trap. But when you calmly ask, explain what you mean, everything changes. Now they have to move from emotion to precision, from attack to evidence, from drama to substance. And most people can't, because vague criticism is often just emotional projection wearing the mask of authority. When you ask for clarity, you expose whether they actually have a point or just a mood. This is one of the most intelligent responses in any confrontation. Not because it sounds impressive, but because it forces reality back into the room. Someone says, you've changed. And instead of apologizing for your growth, you ask, explain what you mean. Someone says, you think you're better than us. You say, explain what you mean. Now they have to show their hand. Do they mean you set boundaries now? Do they mean you stop tolerating disrespect? Do they mean your peace makes them uncomfortable? See, that question doesn't just silence careless people. It reveals them. Epictetus taught that if someone speaks badly of you, live in such a way that no one believes them. But there's another part to that wisdom. Let people be specific. Let them show whether their criticism is truth or insecurity looking for a target. And here's the beautiful part. You ask the question calmly, not aggressively, not with ego, not as a threat, just clarity, because clarity is intimidating to people who came prepared only for confusion. 4. I don't need to prove that to you. This sentence can change your life, because so much suffering comes from this hidden addiction. The need to be validated by people who have already decided not to understand you. You keep explaining, keep defending, keep over-communicating, keep trying to present the perfect version of yourself, hoping that finally this person will be fair. But they were never looking for truth. They were looking for leverage. And the day you realize that, you stop performing. Someone questions your worth, your intentions, your growth, your loyalty, your intelligence. And the old instinct says, show them, convince them, make them see. But the wiser voice says, I don't need to prove that to you. That isn't arrogance. It's self-possession. It means your identity is no longer built on the approval of the person confronting you. You know who you are. You know what you've survived. You know what it costs to become this version of yourself. And you're no longer handing strangers, critics, or manipulators the power to define that. Seneca once said that the opinion of others is a small thing unless you make it large. That's what this response does. It shrinks the false importance of someone else's judgment. Imagine someone says, "If you were really disciplined, you'd have done more by now." And instead of launching into your life story, you say, "I don't need to prove that to you." Clean, steady, final, because not every challenge is a doorway to growth. Some are invitations to self-betrayal. And maturity is learning the difference. 5, if that's how you see it. This one sounds simple, but it carries enormous emotional intelligence. Because one of the hardest lessons in life is accepting that some people will misunderstand you no matter how clear you are. You can explain yourself beautifully. You can be patient. You can be honest. You can even be kind. And still, they will choose the version of you that fits their narrative. Why? Because people don't always see you as you are. They see you through their wounds, their fears, their envy, their assumptions. And if you spend your life trying to correct every distorted perception, you will never be at peace. So when someone insists on seeing you through a lens that is clearly not yours, you can say, if that's how you see it, not as surrender, as acceptance, you are accepting a brutal truth. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you because understanding you would require them to question themselves. And many people would rather keep their story than face their own reflection. This response ends the exhausting cycle of emotional over-explanation. It says, "I see that this is your interpretation. I'm not adopting it. And I'm not spending another hour fighting to be seen by someone determined to stay blind." Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that people act according to what seems right to them. That doesn't excuse them, but it helps you stop expecting wisdom from everyone. Sometimes people aren't arguing with you. They're arguing with their own pain, using your name. So let them, if that's how you see it. Sometimes that sentence is the difference between peace and another week lost to a pointless mental battle. 6 noted, "There's something cold about this one. Not cruel, just controlled. And that's why it works." Noted is what you say when you want to acknowledge the comment without emotionally entering it. Someone gives you disrespect disguised as advice. Someone throws a subtle insult. Someone tries to bait you into a reaction. And instead of defending yourself, you just say, "Noted." That's it. No explanation. No visible wound. No free performance. Just a quiet closing of the door. People who enjoy pushing buttons hate this response because it gives them no access point. They want your face to change, your tone to rise, your attention to lock onto them. But noted is emotionally unavailable in the most elegant way. It says, "I heard you, I've processed it, and I am moving on." It also communicates something subtle but powerful. You are not important enough to disturb my inner world. And that silences people faster than outrage ever could. Think about the discipline that takes. To be criticized and not unravel. To be provoked and not perform. To be disrespected and still remain in command of yourself. That is Stoicism in action. Not just reading quotes. Not just admiring philosophy. Living it. There's a scene many people know too well. Someone says something sharp in front of others. A little public jab. A little humiliation disguised as humor. Everyone waits. They expect the tension, the comeback, the escalation, and you simply say, "Noted," then move on. That room will remember your composure far longer than they remember the insult. Because anybody can react. Very few can remain untouchable. 7. I won't continue this conversation in disrespect. Now we move from silence to boundaries. Because stoicism is not weakness. It's not passivity. And it is definitely not allowing people to walk over you in the name of being calm. There is a time to ignore. And there is a time to draw a line so clearly that nobody misses it. This is one of those lines. I won't continue this conversation in disrespect. This is not emotional. It's not dramatic. It's not a threat. It is a standard. And the most powerful people in life are the ones who know how to enforce standards without becoming chaotic. Too many people think strength means dominating the room. Real strength often looks quieter. It looks like refusing access. It looks like ending the conversation without guilt. It looks like withholding your presence from environments that require your humiliation. If someone is yelling, mocking, twisting your words, interrupting constantly, or using cruelty as communication, the Stoic response is not to endure it endlessly. It is to step out of the arena with dignity. That's what this phrase does. It teaches others how you can be spoken to. And more importantly, how you cannot. People test your boundaries the way water tests cracks in a wall. If they find weakness, they keep pushing. But when they meet firm calm, something changes. They realize they cannot provoke their way into control. And if they keep escalating, you leave. That's the hidden power here. The response works because you're actually willing to walk away. Remember that. Boundaries without action are just wishes. So say it like you mean it. I won't continue this conversation in disrespect. Then protect your peace like it matters. Because it does. 8 no. 1 word. 1 syllable. And for many people, one of the hardest responses to say. Because no threatens every unhealthy dynamic built on your over-explaining. People are comfortable with the version of you that feels guilty. The version that bends. The version that says yes first and resents it later. But once you learn to say no clearly, a strange thing happens. Some people call you selfish, cold, difficult, changed. What they really mean is, you are no longer convenient. And that bothers them. The Stoics understood limitation. Time is limited. Energy is limited. Attention is limited. Life itself is limited. So why hand out your yes like it's free? Why say yes to disrespect? Yes to manipulation? Yes to draining people? Yes to requests that violate your values? Yes to conversations you know will poison your mind for the rest of the day? No is a complete sentence. And when said with calm conviction, it can silence even the most controlling person in the room. Someone says, "Do this for me." You don't want to. You know it's wrong. You know it costs too much. You know it crosses your line. You say, "No." Not rude, not apologetic, not padded with 6 fake excuses. Just honest. Most people don't fear loudness. They fear clarity, because clarity cannot be negotiated as easily. And if someone asks why not, sometimes the answer is simply, because I said no. Your peace does not need a courtroom defense. And the more comfortable you become with clean refusal, the less available you become to people who confuse your kindness with permission. 9. What you think of me is not my responsibility. This response is freedom. Not because it makes everyone agree with you, but because it ends a prison so many people live in for years. The prison of image management. Trying to control how everyone sees you. Trying to be impossible to criticize. Trying to keep your name safe in rooms you're not even in. It's exhausting and impossible. No matter how good you are, someone will misread you. No matter how kind you are, someone will call you fake. No matter how disciplined you become, someone will resent you for it. So at some point, if you want peace, you must accept this. You are responsible for your character, not for everyone's opinion of it. That distinction changes everything. What you think of me is not my responsibility. That's not a rejection of accountability. If you've done wrong, own it. Correct it. Grow. But if someone is projecting onto you, inventing motives, or forcing you into a story that isn't yours, you do not have to become the editor of their perception. Epictetus would ask, is it in your control? Their mind? No. Their narrative? No. Their gossip? No. Your conduct? Yes. Your calm? Yes. Your integrity? Yes. So stay there. Someone says, I know exactly who you are. And maybe every part of you wants to shout, no, you don't. But instead you breathe and say, what you think of me is not my responsibility. That sentence will unsettle people who expected your desperation. Because once they realize they can't control you through perception, they lose one of their favorite tools. And you get something back that matters far more than reputation. You get your mind back. 10, we'll see. This is the response of disciplined people. The ones who no longer feel the urge to announce everything. The ones who don't waste energy trying to prove potential with words. When someone doubts you, mocks your plan, underestimates your future, there's a temptation to speak too much. To explain the vision, reveal the strategy, defend the dream. But often, the smarter response is simply, we'll see. That phrase carries quiet confidence. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't beg for belief. It doesn't overpromise. It lets time become the witness. And time is the most ruthless judge of all. The Stoic understands that results speak best after silence. That discipline grows better in private. That not every seed benefits from being exposed too early. Someone laughs at your ambition, says you'll quit, says you're not built for this. And instead of giving them your whole blueprint, you just say, we'll see. Then you go to work. That's the key. This response is only powerful if it's backed by action. Not fantasy, not ego. Action. Wake up earlier. Train longer. Study deeper. Speak less. Build quietly. Then one day, the same people who dismissed you will have to explain why they didn't see it coming. Marcus Aurelius never told the world to admire his discipline. He practiced it. That is the lesson here. You do not need to win the moment. You need to win the season. And many times, we'll see is more dangerous than a speech. Because it means you are no longer talking from emotion. You are talking from intention. 11. Silence. Now we arrive at the response that most people underestimate. Silence. Not awkward silence. Not wounded silence. Not the silence of not knowing what to say. I mean chosen silence. Deliberate silence. The kind that comes from mastery. There is a level of insult so small, so transparent, so beneath your standards that answering it would actually lower you. That is where silence becomes power. Because silence does something language often cannot. It reveals who is performing. When someone is trying desperately to provoke you, and you say nothing, they are suddenly left alone with their own behavior. No shield, no friction, no chaos to hide behind. Just themselves. And that can be devastating. People often believe power is in saying the perfect line. Sometimes power is in deciding the line is unnecessary. The Stoics were obsessed with self-command. And nothing demonstrates self-command like the ability to remain still when emotion is invited. Someone insults you publicly, tries to embarrass you, wants an explosion, and you look at them calmly, no rush, no defensiveness. Then you continue with your life. That silence says, I see what you're doing. It's beneath me, and I refuse to participate. Now be careful. Silence is only powerful when it is rooted in strength, not suppression. Don't stay silent when you need a boundary. Don't stay silent when you need to protect yourself. Don't stay silent when truth matters. But when the attack is petty, when the motive is obvious, when the person is feeding on reaction, silence is not weakness. It is starvation. And some conversations die the moment you stop feeding them. 12. I'd rather keep my peace than win this argument. This is the final lesson, and the deepest one. Because after all the smart responses, after all the boundaries, after all the calm detachment, there is still one temptation left. The temptation to win, to land the final blow, to make them feel what they made you feel, to prove once and for all that you were right. And that temptation is dangerous, because even if you win the argument, you can still lose your peace. You can replay it all night, carry it for days, poison your focus, drain your nervous system, turn one bad moment into a week of mental noise. That's too expensive. And the wiser you become, the more you realize something simple and brutal. Some victories cost more than they're worth. So when an argument is going nowhere, when egos are rising, when the truth is no longer the goal, you can say, I'd rather keep my peace than win this argument. That sentence confuses people because it rejects the game entirely. It says, my nervous system matters. My clarity matters. My inner world matters more than this performance of being right. And that is one of the highest forms of Stoic strength. Not needing the trophy of I won. Not craving the audience's approval. Not dragging your soul through mud just to hear the words, fine, you were right. Peace is expensive. Protect it accordingly. Seneca warned that the greatest loss is time lost to anger and emotional disturbance. Imagine how many hours of your life have already been stolen by arguments that changed nothing. Now imagine becoming the person who can step back and say, not this time, not for this, not at the cost of myself. That is not weakness. That is evolution. And once you reach that point, something remarkable happens. People can still speak, still judge, still provoke, but they can no longer move you the way they used to. And that is freedom. So let's remember the 12 smart responses that can silence anyone. You're entitled to your opinion. Maybe. Explain what you mean. I don't need to prove that to you. If that's how you see it. Noted. I won't continue this conversation in disrespect. No. What you think of me is not my responsibility. We'll see. Silence. And finally, I'd rather keep my peace than win this argument. But here's the deeper truth. These are not just responses. They are signs of transformation. Because when you stop reacting to everything, people notice. When you stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, people notice. When you stop trading your peace for temporary emotional victories, People notice, and at first some won't like it, because your old reactions made you easier to control. Your old guilt made you easier to manipulate. Your old need to be understood made you easier to trap. But your calm, your boundaries, your silence, that makes you dangerous. Not dangerous because you harm people. Dangerous because you can no longer be ruled by their chaos. And that is what Stoicism was always about. Not becoming emotionless, becoming unshakable. So the next time someone tests you, pause. You do not owe the moment your nervous system. You do not owe disrespect your explanation. You do not owe every attack a counterattack. Sometimes the strongest thing you can say is less, and sometimes the strongest thing you can protect is the part of you that finally learned peace is worth more than performance. If this message found you at the right time, take one of these responses and carry it into your life this week. Not all 12. Just one. Use it when you're challenged. Use it when you're baited. Use it when the old version of you wants to react. And watch what happens when your composure becomes louder than their provocation. Because in a world full of noise, the person who commands themselves will always be the one hardest to defeat. Stay calm, stay disciplined, and never let another person